Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Delta webinar on unlocking the opportunities for energy storage in the commercial and industrial sector. My name is Scott Dwyer. I'm a principal analyst here at Delta.
My name is Valdes Greentals. I work as an analyst for specifically energy storage research service.
And this webinar is part of a three-part series helping you understand the landscape and opportunities for flexibility and energy storage in the commercial and industrial sector. And it's based on some research we recently finished for the Energy Storage Research Service. The first webinar in the series we held last week looking specifically at the UK market for flexibility. And this webinar is available on YouTube if you missed that one. Today's webinar will focus more squarely on energy storage. And in 2 weeks, we'll be looking at the synergies between two. So really bringing the flexibility and the energy storage opportunities together to look at how they combine and how the opportunities combine. So please join us then. Few important points to make before we start. So everybody is on mute. So this just helps with the quality. And we have a couple of hundred people actually joining us today, which is great to see such interest. If you have questions or comments, you can use the question box in the webinar interface panel on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll try and get to all the questions at the end of the webinar. If we don't have time to get through them all, we'll make sure we come back and answer them all directly with you. If you have any issues, you can email us at info@delta-ee.com. and we'll try and fix the issues for you. We will be sending out the slides afterwards as well, but if you could let us know if you would like to be sent the slides, and we'll make sure you receive a copy. We'll be recording this webinar as well, and it will be available on the Delta EE YouTube channel. So the aim of the webinar today is really to share our thinking on the opportunity for C&I energy storage based on the highlights from our recent research into this topic. So we'll begin by just giving some background to the research, defining what we mean, and then taking you through what we see as some of the more feasible propositions around the energy storage for C&I space and how some of the value stacks, the opportunity we see with some of the different value stacks. We'll then be looking at how you actually capture the value in the market today and how that might change in the future. We'll take a look at the competitive environment, and we'll wrap up with some of the conclusions which we have drawn from this research. And as we said, at the end of today, we'll have time to go through the questions which you'll have an opportunity to send as we go through the webinar. Before we get into the main body of today's webinar, we'd just like to introduce Delta to those that don't know us. We know many of you are familiar with who we are and what we do. But for those who aren't, Delta really sees its mission as helping those it works with succeed in this transition from old energy to new energy. So what is old energy? Well, that's where the energy system was much more centralized, it's more carbon intensive. It was based much more around the sales of a commodity, and customers were more known by simple meter points, and much of that value was really upstream. New energy is where the energy system is becoming much more distributed, it's lower carbon, it's built much more around the customer and around services, and much more of the value is actually downstream. And our core expertise at Delta is really where the intersection between the customer, networks and generation. And most of the companies we help are really drawn from energy utilities, from manufacturers, network operators, policymakers and more. In terms of how we help our clients, we help them through research services and multi-client studies, and you'll see there how we structure our research. Energy storage, from which this research is taken, is part of our distributed generation and flexibility research. So you see that box on the middle right-hand side there. So really core to our offerings here at Delta. And we also do knowledge-based consulting, helping clients with understand the markets and how to bring propositions to market.
Yeah, and just to give a brief overview of the Energy Storage Research Service, as all the content that we will be presenting today is taken from our reports that are published to our subscribers. The Energy Storage Research Service is a service that's designed to help our clients to stay on top of this rapidly emerging and dynamic market space. So the service provides ongoing insight and research to our customers for understanding how the energy storage will be deployed. We look at the most promising applications as well as business model innovations across Europe. As for the scope of our work, we look across the distributed energy storage landscape from residential across behind-the-meter, commercial and industrial up to front-of-the-meter co-location and distribution grid applications. So if you're interested to find out more about our research or interested in becoming a subscriber, please get in touch with me or Scott. Just to give introduction in what we're looking at today. Today we will use the webinar to show what propositions are most likely to shape the C&I behind-the-meter energy storage market going forward, and how to best position yourself to capture this market's potential. So in our latest report that we published to our subscribers, we analyzed the opportunities for battery energy storage in behind-the-meter commercial and industrial segment, or C&I, and we specifically look at UK and Germany markets. And our aim is to help our subscribers understand the best propositions, how the current and future market will look in both countries. We look at the regulatory landscape, and we look at who is best positioned to capture the share of this growing segment. But before we discuss this content in more depth, I just wanted to briefly establish some common ground in terms of what we mean by behind-the-meter C&I storage. So by behind-the-meter, we mean storage installed on the customer's side, so behind the demand meter, and we focus specifically on battery-only technologies in this report. So we exclude very large battery storage systems installed at existing power plants or battery storage systems co-located with standalone big solar or wind farms, as well as greenfield developments. And in terms of sizing, the report considers battery storage systems with capacity between 40 kilowatt hours up to 10 megawatt hours.
Thanks, Val. So hopefully that frames what we're going to be speaking about today and where we're coming from and where the research has been drawn from. Now it's time for the first of 3 polls that we're running today. And this poll is, we're really interested in what your views are around energy storage. It's one of the reasons also for having this webinar today, as well as showcasing our recent research. So our first poll, we'd like to ask you, which European markets are you expecting to be leading in commercial and industrial energy storage deployment? And we'd like you to please choose your top 3. We'll just give you a minute or two just to choose which your top 3 is, and we'll publish this
in just a minute.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
So there are lots of votes coming in. 60% voted, 70%, and some interesting findings there actually.
Yeah.
So we'll just wait for the last
few seconds.
Few seconds. Those who haven't voted, please make sure you vote.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1, and we're closing the polls. So as you can see from the results, majority of people believe Germany.
So Germany
is
first,
the biggest, followed by UK.
Maybe not so surprising, seeing as they're the 2 we're focusing on, and maybe you all see it, say it the same way. That's certainly the market we hear people are most interested in. But after that, it's fairly close. France and 31%, Italy, well, other on 29%, and Italy on 24%. We're interested actually what your others are, so feel free to chat in your other market if you're willing to share that. Maybe you want to keep that a secret, not tell anybody, but feel free to type that into the chat box. Really interested to know your views. That's what you expected there?
So yeah, I was expecting, I guess, UK and Germany to lead. So
yeah, fairly close, I guess, between the other ones.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. That was the first of 3 polls, and we'll have more for you later on as well. So the commercial and industrial sector really, I mean, it's attracting huge interest here, and I think the energy storage team had been dying to do some in-depth research on this since we launched the service. And we do expect this segment to play a really major role in shaping the European energy storage market going forward. And what we're seeing here really is, I mean, this is really our conclusion from the research. And what we'll be looking at really is over the next 5 years, we really see a significant growth opportunity. And by 2021, we'll see the annual market reaching close to 210 megawatt hours. So you can see there on the chart, Germany and UK combined. And the implication of this, obviously, is that this will play a significant role in shaping the market in the future. So that's our basic high-level conclusion. Obviously, there's a lot more behind that, and please don't leave now thinking that's all we're going to cover today. So we'll talk a bit more about the propositions and the value stacks, what today's market looks like in terms of the competitive landscape, how you can actually capture that market, and who's best positioned for taking advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, and just to start off with the host of potential values for storage to tap into in the C&I behind the meter storage space, there is a wide range of values accessible for storage, and there are some that are accessible in both markets that we looked at. So those include self-consumption, power quality and backup power, generation curtailment, wholesale arbitrage, and avoidance of imbalance penalties. But there are also quite a few values that are individual to each of the countries. So for UK, we see triad avoidance, store, frequency response, capacity market, and also duos charge avoidance. So that's the red, amber, green tariffs. As for Germany, we see so avoidance of network charges as a significant value for storage, as well as control reserve. But before we give our final view on what are the most feasible primary values, we would be actually interested in finding out your opinion about this. So we'll launch our second poll where we ask what is the most viable primary use case for C&I storage today. So the options are peak shaving, is it self-consumption of on-site generation like PV, is it backup power, power quality, is it ancillary services like frequency response or capacity market, or in Germany it would be control reserve, or is it something else that they haven't mentioned?
Yeah, and feel free to type in what that something else is into the chat box as well, and happy to review and share this at the end as well when we go through the questions. So we've got votes coming in. We've got around 60% voted, 70%. Okay, and it's the single most viable primary case. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
The key part of that is the primary case. Okay, and we'll give it another 10 seconds. So if you haven't voted, please do so now, and we'll close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's closed. So just to share the results, as you can see, peak shaving is leading, followed by ancillary services like frequency response or capacity market, then followed by the self-consumption of on-site generation, and backup power quality has the lowest percentage in this. Okay. So just to give our view on this, interestingly, the results match up with what we see.
That's good. That's a relief.
Yeah, key primary values. in the propositions that we've identified. But before that, just to give you a quick view of what is the monetary value in each of those values. As you can see from the tables here, so we've identified, we've looked in more depth on what is the value that can be captured by storage from this in both German and UK markets. And in addition to looking at the values, we've also obviously done research on the technological tech requirements of tapping into these values. What are the operational constraints for storage if the customer wants to do this? And the combination of this research with the primary customer research that we did in the report helped us identify 3 core propositions that are applicable to both markets centered around different primary values. And I'll just do a quick run through the 3 propositions. So as you can see, proposition number 1, the primary value is self-consumption. And this is likely a proposition that a customer with on-site generation in flexible demand and high value in backup power would be interested in. And as you can see, secondary values in this proposition would be backup power as well as peak shaving. So in UK that would be triad avoidance, Germany that would be network charge avoidance. The second proposition we see focuses around peak shaving as the primary value. And the customer attributes are flexible demand. There is no need for on-site generation for this. The main part is that the customer has high network charges and there is a need for small backup. As you can see from secondary values, there is a bit more individuality between the countries. So, for example, in UK, secondary values would be frequency response if aggregator is willing to help, as well as backup power. And proposition number 3 focuses around frequency regulation. Now, this is a proposition that is likely to be more appealing to a wider range of C&I customers. So you see customer attributes like flexible interruptible demand, customers willing to work with aggregator in order to provide this frequency response, as well as it's good to have on-site generation in this instance. And as the secondary values, you'll see some self-consumption if on-site generation is available, as well as peak shifting, which is in this case only applicable to UK. And after identifying these propositions, we obviously did pretty detailed modeling to determine how these values stack up and calculate payback periods as well as annual revenues achievable. And results from this detailed modeling allowed us to identify which are the most viable propositions in each of the markets. And as you can see, our analysis shows that proposition number 2 is the most viable in both Germany and UK.
Thanks, Val. So I think, yeah, just highlight some of the really detailed modelling and what is actually behind this, the commercial and industrial segment and the research we've done on that. Val's touched on the value of flexibility, and we've actually just published a multi-client study looking at how the UK flexibility markets will develop and how to tap into that. And obviously relevant for energy storage and demand response. And it's a really fantastic study. The first webinar in the series drew from that, and the next one will sort of take the findings from that and combine it with our findings from energy storage research as well. And although it's focused on the UK, it does draw on innovations, technical and business model innovations from with a global view and relate that back to the UK market. So you can see some of the key questions there, and if you'd like to know more, please come on the next webinar or send us some questions if you'd like to ask us anything in relation to that.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, so just to look at how to capture the market today and in the future. So today, as you can see from the graph, the market in both countries is quite small. In the UK, larger scale segment is leading, primarily driven by high value and frequency response, while in Germany, medium-sized businesses with on-site generation are emerging as an early segment to focus on self-consumption. And specifically, we see the following customer types, so 4 following customer types showing early promise. And while it depends on individual requirements and market characteristics a lot, examples identified throughout our primary research include water and waste treatment, which are customers with flexible demand loads, likely to have on-site generation, and they have the benefit of having long-term planning horizons, so being able to invest into a longer-term payback solution like storage. Retail, which has country differences. For example, in UK, we expect to see retail, multi-site retail with high electricity demand as a likely segment to take on energy storage in early pilots. While in Germany, we see smaller, privately held retail outlets with solar PV considering to install small-scale storage. Another segment we see is large industrial processes and especially customers with high peak demands, critical loads, and especially in segments where loss of electricity supply can be very costly to the business. And additionally, agriculture, which while might have smaller uptake, there's a good example in Germany where farmers are early adopters of solar PV, and we would anticipate this to happen with energy storage as well. As for the pivotal aspects of creating a leading customer proposition in the UK and Germany, we see that there is no one-size-fits-all due to individual customer requirements and characteristics and the dynamic nature of different values that can be accessed. So to be able to effectively and quickly implement the propositions outlined in previous slides, we see that development and utilization of smart software that is backed with deep knowledge of both markets is crucial. And we see leading early propositions coming from project financing, and they are likely to stack values through the help of aggregators.
Thanks, Val. So we've mentioned some of the key stakeholders here and some of the values, but who's best placed to take advantage of these opportunities and capture these values? So in creating the right strategic partnerships, obviously that's going to be key, and it's not rocket science, but we've just highlighted some of the key stakeholders and where we think who might be in a strong position. Now, the market across both Germany and UK is already quite crowded as key stakeholders are looking to position themselves strongly and capture this growing market value. I mean, early on we see early leaders in terms of the integrators as well as developers and aggregators trying to gain a foothold, as Val said. Also companies who are able to provide project finance as well. They're currently in a very strong position again due to future regulatory uncertainty. In terms of the utilities, I mean, they've got already direct customer relationships as do aggregators and ESCOs, so we see them as providing a core sales route as well. And especially the energy suppliers to commercial and industrial companies, they're really building capabilities internally, and we see them taking a leading position as the market continues to expand. And we'll see, I think, increased M&A activity here as well. In the long term, we expect the competitive position to consolidate somewhat as the market matures and we see some of these leaders emerge as well. Again, we've got a lot more detail in the research on those types of players and how we see their the outlook for them over the coming 5 years. So this takes us on to our final poll for the day. And this final poll, we'd like to ask you, who do you think is best positioned to lead the energy storage deployment of commercial and industrial within the commercial and industrial segment? So please vote now, and you can choose from energy suppliers, from aggregators, from integrators, from the developers, or feel free to type in other into your chat box as well. So it's looking quite close. We've got 60% of people voted, fairly close between two of them. And we'll up at 75% voted. Keep those votes coming in. We'll give you another 10 or 15 seconds before we close. And I think we'll close it in the next 5 seconds. Okay, so those who have haven't voted, please make sure you do now, and we'll close. Thanks, Valts. Wow, and there we have it. So fairly close between energy suppliers and aggregators, about a third of the vote each. Integrators and developers was quite close in the voting, but integrators seem to have moved ahead slightly, a fifth of the vote, and then developers as well. Valts, is anything surprising there, or what you would have expected?
I guess, yeah, I would have expected this actually. Surprisingly low number for solar and renewable developers, but
yeah. Good. Okay. Well, interesting findings nonetheless, and I think if you come and if you ask for the presentation slide, will contain the findings from the polls in that slide set as well.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep. So just to go into the conclusions. Just as Scott mentioned at the start, we see significant growth opportunity over the next 5 years. So by 2021, we see annual market reaching close to 210 megawatt hours. And the implication of this is that C&I sector will play a significant role in shaping the distributed energy storage market. As the three core propositions, we see peak shaving, so three core propositions focusing around primary values in peak shaving, frequency, response, self-consumption. And while the nature of this opportunity is similar, both countries have notable differences regarding the value streams that are accessible in each market. As for the customer segments, again, great examples are water and waste treatment, industrial processes, and retail and agriculture. And thing to note is also, while overall our view is very positive, we see some risks and uncertainties around regulation, as well as customer awareness about this and financing. And as Scott previously mentioned, the market is already crowded, and we have profiled a total of more than 40 plus different key stakeholders. As for the main market drivers supporting the forecast, we see increasing value from flexibility driving this, falling energy storage system costs, aggregation propositions that are improving project economics, energy companies starting to offer one-stop solutions, as well as growing customer awareness and confidence in using energy storage. And just to go back, right now would be a great time for questions, if there are any.
Yep, so feel free to type in your questions. So what have we got?
So we see a question about the recently announced potential changes in triads. So we see the changes in triad value as having some impact on behind-the-meter C&I energy storage. However, there is still the regionality factor for the triad value. So there still will be regions in the UK, for example, where the avoidance of triad charges has significant value to the end customer. And this is something that we will be adding to our report. So we'll add to our modeling and do additional analysis of how it looks with the changing triads.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that question. We've maybe got time for one more. Okay, so will you look into any other country markets in the same detail as UK and Germany for the CNI opportunity? So will we look into any other country markets in as much detail as Germany or UK for the CNI
Depends on
opportunity?
the future developments, but if there is a market emerging for CNI, obviously we'll add that to our list of countries.
Yeah.
There's a question about how will the new frequency response product by National Grid that is likely to be announced later this year impact the proposition, and we think that this is going to have a positive impact on smaller, especially on smaller scale behind the meter CNI, as it makes it easier to apply for different well, it makes the application process, the frequency response, easier, and they are so they will be cutting down the requirement for the capacity, which allows smaller players to participate in frequency response. And also we see the value in frequency response only growing in the future.
Okay, thanks for that. I've been conscious of time, so what we'll do is we've got lots of other questions actually come in, but what we'll do is we'll respond to these one by one for all the askers. Really appreciate your input and comments so far. They've been coming through loud and clear. So it just leaves us to say that we can only show you so much in this open access webinar. So if you'd like to understand more about the opportunities and risks and answers to your questions, we're helping a lot of companies understand the opportunities under the Energy Storage Research Service. You can see the main deliverables. The CNI report was basically extract from our in-depth reports, and these topics are chosen by subscribers. They were interested in the Germany and UK market, so we looked into that first, and we published those over the course of the year. We also do country reports and have a case study library around business models and products, applications, really looking at key deployment models and where we see the use cases, the strongest use cases as well. And of course we do news and briefing notes and things like the changes at the regulatory policy levels as well. And of course tailored support. So if you have specific questions, you can use us really as a research extension to your business. So as I said, there's only so much we can share on today, but we'd love to hear from you more about your questions and comments. And if you have outstanding questions, we're happy to answer those. If you need any more information on the Energy Storage Research Service, please feel free to contact us. And also, as I mentioned, this is part 2 of a series of 3 webinars. The next one will be looking at combining our research on flexibility with our research on energy storage for the CNI space. That's on the 29th of March. Registration isn't open yet, but what we'll do is we'll likely email everybody who was on the webinar today when we open that webinar for registration, and we hope to see you on that. We hope to see you on that webinar. We'll come back to you as well with the questions that we haven't had a chance to answer.
Yeah.
So just leaves us to say thanks for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time out of your day, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.